Why would someone spend years of their life making a movie about a $6 indie horror game? That's the question that forced me to play Iron Lung. If the game were longer, I might not have questioned it. But can a 2-hour experience really justify a feature film? I have avoided watching the movie because I wanted to go in blind, just as Markiplier did when he first played it years ago. In search for answers, I might have found exactly what trapped him in this world. Before you even press a button, Iron Lung establishes one of the bleakest premises in modern indie horror: the Quiet Rapture, an event where every habitable planet and star vanished, including Earth, Mars, and all of humankind. The only survivors were those stationed on ships, now stranded in space. Decades later, the remnants of humanity have found moons filled with oceans of blood. Where they came from is anyone's guess. You play as a prisoner who picked the wrong side in some war between the surviving factions. As punishment, you have been welded shut inside a submarine, named the Iron Lung. If Earth was ever discovered again, people would find graves bigger than your metal casket.
Beginning your descent. Cruising depth in roughly 40 seconds. Stand by.
A distorted voice on the intercom informs you of your purpose. Traverse one of these blood oceans and photograph specific locations important to your captors. The only way out is by doing their bidding. This tense exposition at the start invokes questions. What is the Quiet Rapture? Where did the humans go? How did these moons come to have oceans filled with blood? And then the game refuses to explain anything. Constraints like these are what elevate Iron Lung from visual to psychological horror. You navigate the world with only 3 inputs. X and Y relate to coordinates on the map, and A adjusts the ship's angle. This deliberate choice to distance the game from the traditional WASD control scheme takes away a players' muscle memory and forces them to adapt to a new clunky system. The simple act of moving through the world turns into stress-inducing micro-fidgeting. Then there's the save system, or lack thereof. While the game does autosave occasionally, that usually means restarting your journey from the very beginning. In this way, the player's fear of losing progress mirrors the prisoner's fear of losing their life. There are no retries for either. That's genius game design. But the most effective constraint Iron Lung puts on its players is the lack of almost any contact with the outside world. The front window of the submarine had to be welded shut to allow the prisoner some time. At this crushing depth, it also leaves them blind. This lack of information forces players to navigate by comparing their coordinates with the maps. Every creek in the ocean isn't just a sound, it's a mystery, and your mind can't help but invent explanations simply to make the unknown feel rational.
But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything. Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal.
As you progress through the game, you fall into a mundane rhythm. Watch the coordinates, check the map, take the picture, move on. At first, it feels oppressive, then it feels like work. Finally, and this is the part the game is counting on, it starts to feel normal. The groans of the hull stop registering, the long silences between locations stop feeling like dread and start feeling like quiet. You stop waiting for something to happen and start just doing the job. Iron Lung teaches you this routine deliberately. It wants you comfortable, because comfort is what it's going to take from you. You capture a picture of something clearly alive. You get teleported. The submarine catches fire. The game escalates not with volume but with uncertainty. It delights in catching you off guard, forcing you to fill in the gaps. You assume the oxygen meter is a strict time limit. You assume the blood leaking in from the floor means you are seconds away from imploding. You assume the game is actively trying to kill you. In reality, it's just watching you panic, and this panic comes from your own interpretations. It makes the horror far more personal than anything that could be rendered on screen. In my playthroughs, the game caught me off guard many times. Whether I was crashing into a wall or watching the fire extinguisher fail in real time, the uncertainty was the hook. The absence of answers made the experience frustrating, but also unforgettable. And that's the key. Iron Lung is a simple game, which doesn't rely on skill. It relies on confinement. It doesn't overwhelm you with horrors. It makes you imagine them. It doesn't explain its world. It lets you create it. That creative burden, the fact that the player builds the horror themselves, is what makes this story worth adapting. Not because a filmmaker can recreate the game, they can't, but because the game hands them something rare. A world that is almost entirely implication. There are almost no creative chains. The vagueness isn't a gap to fill, it's an open invitation. And then there's the practical case. The game's reliance on sound design and atmosphere over fear-inducing visuals means a film adaptation can focus entirely on the psychological breakdown of the protagonist. The prisoner never leaves the submarine and only hears one other voice. That would require only one actor, one set, one voice actor. The premise would do the heavy lifting. From a production standpoint, this is a goldmine. So yes, I think it deserved a movie. Not because it's lengthy, not because it's detailed, but because it excels in simplicity, where many fail in spectacle, and because it knows what most horror gets wrong. The scariest thing was never on the other side of the window. It was always you, sitting in the dark, deciding what was there.